Days of Our Lives is heading into one of those weeks where everything feels like it is shifting at once. Familiar faces are coming back, old wounds are reopening, and several storylines seem ready to collide in ways that could change the emotional balance of Salem almost overnight. On the surface, this preview promises reunions, surprises, and a few long-awaited returns. But underneath all of that, there is something much more unstable building. Because this is not just a week about who comes back. It is a week about what their return forces everyone else to face. So let's break it all down, because this preview may be setting up much more than a busy week. It may be laying the groundwork for several emotional explosions at once. One of the most emotional moments in the preview is Lonnie Price Grant's return and her reunion with Chanel. On the surface, it gives the week a warm, heartfelt note. Chanel's face says everything. She is genuinely relieved, maybe even a little emotional, to have her sister back in front of her. And in Salem, those family reunions always matter because they carry history before anyone even starts talking. What makes Lonnie's arrival stand out is the timing. Chanel does not seem like a woman walking into a calm chapter. There is pressure building around her from multiple directions, and now this possible health crisis adds a much heavier layer. That means Lonnie may be stepping back into Chanel's life at exactly the moment when emotional support is no longer comforting, it is necessary. Instead of feeling like a simple family visit, Lonnie's return may be the show's way of preparing Chanel for something more frightening ahead. When days places loved ones close together right before a crisis deepens, it usually means the emotional fallout is about to hit harder. Support becomes significant because pain may be coming next. So yes, the reunion is touching. But it may also be a warning sign. The closer Chanel gets to the people who love her, the more powerful the next blow could be. Chad DiMera's return already carries interest because of the recast, with Connor Floyd stepping into the role. That alone gives the material a different kind of energy, since viewers will be watching not only for Chad's story, but for how this new version of him lands emotionally from the very first scene. And the show is not easing him in gently. He comes back with Thomas and Charlotte, which immediately frames his return around family, memory, and responsibility. That matters, because a character's energy feels different when they are not returning alone. Chad is not re-entering Salem as a free-floating romantic figure. He is arriving as a father, and that instantly gives his scenes more emotional weight. That is why the moment with Kat in the town square feels so important. The preview labels it as awkward, but awkwardness in a soap like this is rarely casual. More often, it signals emotional residue, unresolved feelings, difficult timing, or a connection that has not fully been put to rest. And when children are standing there in the middle of that tension, the scene becomes even more loaded. It forces the emotional reality into the open. Kat may not just be seeing Chad again. She may be seeing the full shape of his life all at once. And Chad, in turn, may be forced to recognize that whatever he walks back into in Salem is not going to stay simple for long. If there is lingering chemistry, unfinished pain, or romantic confusion waiting beneath the surface, this reunion could stir it up immediately. So Chad's return may not function as nostalgia. It may work as disruption, the kind that quietly changes several relationships at the same time. Not every major turning point in Salem begins with a scream or a confrontation. Sometimes it starts with one small mistake, and Theo leaving his journal behind may be exactly that kind of moment. At first, it sounds minor. A personal item gets left at the pub, Gabby notices it, and naturally, curiosity enters the picture. But in soap storytelling, private writing is never just private writing once it lands in the wrong hands. A journal is concentrated truth. It holds what characters are not ready to say out loud, which makes it far more explosive than ordinary gossip. If Gabby reads about Lexi's survival there, then the information reaches her in the most emotionally charged way possible. Not through explanation, not through preparation, but through discovery. And that changes everything. It means the truth is no longer being managed by the people who wanted to control it. It starts moving on its own. And Gabby is exactly the kind of character who can make that dangerous very quickly. She does not tend to sit on shocking information and quietly process it forever. She pushes. She reacts. She follows the emotional thread until it leads somewhere. So if she realizes that something this major has been hidden, her response may not just be personal curiosity. It could become pressure on everyone connected to the secret. That is what makes the journal twist so effective. It is subtle, but it has the power to destabilize a much larger story. Because once a hidden truth escapes through the wrong doorway, it rarely stops with one person finding out. The tone of the preview changes fast once Sarah is seen making an urgent call to schedule a mammogram. That one moment immediately makes the week feel heavier, because this is no longer just about romance, family tension, or buried secrets. This is the kind of development that forces every character around Chanel to stop and confront something real. A possible breast cancer scare introduces a very different kind of fear into the story. Unlike most soap conflicts, this is not a problem that can be argued away or manipulated through strategy. It creates helplessness. It creates waiting. And in many ways, the waiting can be more frightening than the diagnosis itself, because it leaves everyone trapped between suspicion and certainty. Sarah's urgency matters here. She is not speaking like someone handling a routine concern. She sounds focused, serious, and aware that time may matter. That gives the entire storyline more weight before Chanel even gets any answers. The fear begins before the result does. What makes this even more compelling is what it could reveal emotionally. Chanel may be pushed into one of her most vulnerable arcs in a long time, because health fear strips away performance. It exposes what a character is really afraid of when there is no distraction left. And for the people around her, this kind of storyline tends to separate comfort from true emotional strength very quickly. Johnny could be especially important in that process. If he steps up, this may deepen him in a more grounded and mature way. But if outside chaos starts pulling him away at the exact moment Chanel needs stability, then her fear may become even more isolating. That is what gives this story such power. It does not just raise the stakes. It changes the emotional temperature of the entire week. Right after Chanel's medical fear takes center stage, the preview cuts to something even darker. Kristen's call to Sophia about the plot against Johnny. And Kristen's instruction says a lot in very few words. Get it done tomorrow. No emotion, no mess. Kristen is approaching this like a woman who believes precision equals control. She wants the plan clean, quick, and emotionally detached, which tells us she already understands how dangerous it is. But that kind of cold confidence can also be a weakness, because in Salem, the more tightly someone tries to control a destructive plan, the more violently it tends to break apart. And Sophia may be the weak point. What makes the preview interesting is that Sophia agrees, but she does not look steady. She looks shaken. That detail matters because it suggests she may be reaching the point where fantasy revenge and real-world consequences are colliding in her head. It is one thing to talk about ruining Johnny. It is another to take a concrete step that cannot be undone. Because messy plans do not only come from bad intentions. They come from fear, second-guessing, and panic at the wrong moment. If Sophia falters, rushes, or tries to compensate for her nerves, the target may not be the only thing that shifts. The outcome could shift too. Johnny may be the intended victim, but the most effective soap plots are often the ones where collateral damage becomes the real tragedy. If this scheme hits the wrong person, or detonates at the wrong time, then Kristen may end up unleashing consequences far worse than the revenge she imagined. And with Chanel already standing on fragile emotional ground, that possibility feels especially ominous. So this plot does not feel gripping just because it is cruel. It feels gripping because it is unstable, and instability is often what turns revenge into catastrophe. The final image in the preview gives the week one last jolt. Alex opens the door, freezes, and looks completely blindsided. That reaction alone tells viewers that Joy's return is not being treated like a casual comeback. It is being framed as a shock with immediate consequences. If Joy has really come back with Alex's child, then this is not simply an emotional complication. It is a life-altering reality arriving without warning. In one moment, Alex could be forced to move from assumption to accountability. No more distance, no more uncertainty, no more pretending the situation belongs to the past. Now it is at the door. What makes the twist stronger is how late in the week it seems to arrive. That placement gives it impact, because after days of tension, secrets, fear, and emotional pressure, Joy's return has the potential to feel like the final crack in an already unstable surface. It does not have to dominate the whole week to matter. It only has to hit at the right moment. And for Alex, that moment could be devastating. Shock is only the beginning. After that comes the much harder part. What kind of man he becomes once the truth is standing in front of him. Does he respond with guilt? Panic? Denial? Responsibility? That is where the storyline gets interesting, because the baby angle is not just about scandal. It is about identity. It tests whether Alex is prepared to face consequences that are no longer emotional theory, but living reality. That is why Joy's return could end up being more than a dramatic entrance. It may be the event that forces Alex's next chapter to begin whether he is ready or not. So overall, the week of April 20th through 24 looks like one of those important transition weeks on Days of Our Lives. The kind that begins with returns and reunions, but may end with heartbreak, exposure, and irreversible fallout. Lonnie brings emotion. Chad brings disruption. Theo's journal threatens secrecy. Chanel's health scare raises the stakes in a very real way. Kristen and Sophia are playing with fire. And Joy may close the week by dropping a bomb Alex cannot ignore. And honestly, that may be the most exciting part of this preview. Almost every storyline feels like it is standing right on the edge of becoming something much bigger. What are you most excited to see next week? Do you think Kristen and Sophia's plan will go horribly wrong? And could Joy's return completely change Alex's life? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoy Days of Our Lives breakdowns like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next spoiler update.